Hey everyone, this is Heidi. Welcome back to my channel, My Reading Life. I am here today to film my TBR check-in and book haul for the month of July. I probably should say I'm here to confess my sins because I went a little crazy in the month of July. After finally having brought my TBR down to 100 in the previous month, I promptly put it back up over 100 in July. So this is the process that I balance my books every month, and I like to do a video checking in about it and then go through the books that I purchased or brought into my home in some manner. And it's only to do with my physical TBR. So these are only just physical books. This doesn't talk about digital acquisitions or audiobooks or anything like that. So let's look at the balance sheet. This is what we're this is what we've got for the month. We've got 10 books total read, which is the lowest amount of books read for the entire year so far. July was an extremely busy month for me. I read 5 books off my shelves. I brought in 11 books. I did not unhaul any books, and so that left me with a +6 for the month. So I'm at 106. Right back up to basically where it was. But I have high hopes for the next couple of months because we'll talk about it. But we're back up to 106. I'm not really mad about it. As I've talked about many times before, this is a fun game for me that I get to play with myself to try to encourage myself to read physical books off my TBR and to sort of make me be more intentional about the books that I acquire and bring into my home. And a lot of these books, as we'll talk about, are books that I've acquired for a particular purpose. So there are a few that were impulse purchases, but most of them are books that I acquired for a particular purpose. So let's just get to it. The first book was a gift from a publisher. This is The Quiet Damage, QAnon and the Destruction of the American Family by Jessalyn Cook. And this was gifted to me by the publisher Crown Publishing. Thank you very much to Crown. I have, in fact, read this book. I didn't finish it in the month of July. I finished it at the beginning of August, but I started it in July. I believe I talked about it in my mid-month book bash vlog last month. And I will be talking about it in more detail when I wrap up my July reading. But you should know that this book just published on July 23rd. So if you're interested in the subject matter, this is nonfiction. If you're interested in the subject matter, it is available for you to purchase at this point or to get from your library. So that was the first book that I acquired in July. The next 2 books I picked up for the Book Naturalist Book Club. So I needed this book for the August book club read. This is The Last Wild Horses by Maja Lunde. This is translated from the Norwegian by Diane Oatley. She's translated all of the ones in this series of books. So these books are connected by theme, not by character, and they are climate fiction novels. So you don't have to read any of the previous ones to read this one and to join us for the Book Naturalist Book Club in the month of August. This is a 3-timeline story, one historical, 1881, one in recent past, 1992, and one in 2064, talking about the impacts of climate change and particularly following wild horses. So I'm very interested to get into this one. I very much have liked the previous 2 books I've read by this author. So I will be reading this one in the month of August. And then for September's book club pick, I picked up The Kissing Bug, A True Story of a Family, an Insect, and a Nation's Neglect of a Deadly Disease by Daisy Hernandez. This is a September pick for the Book Naturalist Book Club, and I believe this is about the Zika virus. This woman who, how this virus has impacted her family, and it makes her go into this deep dive on this particular virus. And it's about Chagas, the only country with the native insects, the kissing bugs that carry the Chagas parasite. This talks about public policies, racism, poverty, and how a marginalized disease connects lives. So interested in that one. I've never read a book about that is like this kind of a focus, I don't think, about a disease and focusing on a specific disease that's carried by an insect, and how that all works with social policies. So interested in getting to this one. The next 2 books I purchased from Thrift Books for Buddy Reads with Sean Bree's books. So these are 2 books that we're planning to read sometime in the future. The first one is The Harpole Report by J.L. Carr. Look how tiny this is. And this little tiny paperback by Penguin. And Sean and I have been reading books written by and about J.L. Carr, who was an English author in the mid-20th century. And this is his novel about being a headmaster at a school in England. The author was in fact an educator in his lifetime before he became a novelist. And so this, I think, takes some of his own personal experiences and, fictionalizes them into this book. So excited to try that one because we've really liked J.L. Carr's stuff in the past. And then this one is Where I Live Now, A Journey Through Love and Loss to Healing and Hope by Sharon Butala. Sean has interviewed Sharon Butala several times on his channel. She's been on as a mystery guest, that type of thing. She is a Canadian author. Sean and I read her previous memoir, which was about like when she first got married and moved with her husband to a farm in like rural parts of Saskatchewan. And is that right? Is that the right province? Now I'm questioning myself. Saskatchewan. Yes. She was on the ranchlands of Southwest Saskatchewan. And this memoir is talking about later in life after her husband has passed away and how she feels she no longer can live on the ranch. And so what happens to her after that. So we will be adding that to our list of books to read. And speaking of Sean Bree's books, the next book I purchased is this ginormous book, The Deluge by Stephen Markley. This novel is also climate fiction. It is a monster. And Sean and I are currently buddy reading this, and I am loving it so much. I can't even tell you how much I'm enjoying this. This is a mixed media type of novel. There are like articles and newspaper reports and other types of ephemera mixed into the narrative. Each chapter is from a different character's point of view, and we're slowly learning about each of these characters and how they're going to intersect, dealing with climate change issues. It very much in this first, we've read like the first 160 pages. In the first part, it's very much reminding me of The Overstory by Richard Powers, which I absolutely loved, except that this one has a much sharper edge. Like Stephen Markley is a very he has got a sharp pen. He's really witty. He's really sharply observant. He is very much, his characters are not necessarily people that you're going to like, but they are super interesting and you really want to know what's going to happen with them. So yeah, so this one, I'm not supposed to be reviewing these books. I'm just supposed to be telling you what I purchased, but this one makes me so excited because I'm loving it so much. Currently reading The Deluge. The next book I picked up is for a project that I won't get to for a while because it's for my presidential reading challenge. And this is one of the Lyndon Johnson massive biographies, the 4-volume set of biographies by Robert Caro. This is The Years of Lyndon Johnson, Master of the Senate. So this is about his work in the Senate when Lyndon Johnson was a senator. And there are 3 other volumes that detail the rest of Lyndon Johnson's life. And I am currently reading Herbert Hoover's biography, so I'm a little bit away from Lyndon Johnson, but I found this one used for like $8, and it's like brand new. I don't even know if this was ever read. It's not brand new, but it's like very lightly used hardcover. I don't know that it was ever read, and I just couldn't pass it up for that price. So it's going to live on my shelves until I'm ready to get to it. The next 4 books are the books that I purchased when I was on my adventure in New York City with Doris. And I will talk about these 4 books. And then at the end of that, those of you who do not like vlog footage can leave. And I will have some clips from Doris and I's adventures in New York City to share with you at the end of this video. But let's talk about the books that I purchased first. The first one is because I was totally influenced by Doris because she had purchased this book and was currently reading it while she was staying up here in Maine in our camp. And this is The Light Eaters, How the Unseen World of Plant Intelligence Offers a New Understanding of Life on Earth by Zoe Schlanger. And I had heard somebody talk about this. So somebody reviewed this and I watched the review on BookTube and I already had it on my radar. And then Doris was reading it and she relayed some anecdote from the beginning of the book, and I was like, oh, I must read that book. And so while we were in New York City, this is a book that I purchased. I can't remember, did I leave the... Yes, this was, I purchased it at Rizzoli bookstore. So I'm very excited to get to this one because I think that it is exactly up my alley for nature writing. So I am excited. And plus that, look at this cover. I mean, good Lord, that is a really nice cover. And then the next 3 books, one of which is for a buddy read, but the other 2 are just completely whim purchases. So I purchased A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. So you should know that before, these next 3 books were all purchased at a Barnes & Noble's in New York City. And you should know before we went to that bookstore, I had found out that my flight home to Maine the next morning was canceled. And I had found out that I had to take a train from New York City to Boston, and then a bus from Boston to Portland, Maine. And then my husband had to come pick me up in Portland, Maine and drive me the 4 hours home. So I knew I was going to have a lot of time traveling the next day. And so I wanted a book that I could just escape into and not think about the fact that I was going to be on a train and then a bus and then a car for my entire day. So I needed to read this next book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series of fantasy books, and so this was the one that I needed to read next, and so I purchased it, and I read like the first 200 pages or something while I was traveling that Sunday. So I've already finished this one. I finished it in July, and I'm not going to review it because this is a book haul and not for me to review the books. So I finished this one in the month of July. Purchased and finished. And then I picked up this mystery novel, The Appeal, 1 Murderer, 15 Suspects. Can You Uncover the Truth by Janice Hallett. And I bought this one because I had heard somewhere that it was a mixed media, mixed format type of book. And that sounded really interesting to me. I really like those kinds of books, particularly in genre fiction. And so this is kind of like a locked room mystery where some people are putting on a play. I believe they're putting on a play. Yeah, theater group. And they're in a rehearsals and somebody gets killed. And then like we're trying to figure out who has died and why and like what's going on. And it's all from like emails and parts of the screenplay and like, I don't know, all different kinds of text messages, reports, all kinds of things. And so I'm very interested to read this and see if I like it. I've heard quite a bit about this author, but I've never read anything by them before. So I'm going to try that one and see what I think. And then last but not least, I have this nonfiction, Erik Larson, favorite author of mine. This is his latest piece of nonfiction, The Demon of Unrest, a saga of hubris, heartbreak, and heroism at the dawn of the Civil War. And I believe this is about the Fort Sumter. Yes, Fort Sumter in the fighting around Fort Sumter at the start of the Civil War. So I will be buddy reading this with my nonfiction buddy readers, Doris and Karen and Patrice in September. I believe we're going to tackle this one. And we love Erik Larson. We've read many of his books together by this point, and we just love his stuff. So I fully expect to love this one as well. And I do really like this cover. I think it's a great cover. Even though the Civil War is not like my favorite time period to read about, but I still think Erik Larson will bring it home and I will enjoy it. I also want to point out this book behind me, which is Australian Sea Life, which is a children's picture book that details the sea life of Australia. And my daughter recently traveled to Australia and with my niece, and this is the book that she brought me home. So I will link for you down below a link to her travel vlogs that she made from her trip to Australia. They drove from Cairns to Sydney in a camper van and visited many places along the coast and were able to snorkel on the Great Barrier Reef in 2 different locations, like bucket list stuff. They had a fabulous time and I'm super jealous that they got to do that. So I will link her travel vlogs down below and you can see the fun times that they got up to. And then I am going to stop talking and I will leave here at the end of the video some clips that show how much fun Doris and I had in New York City. I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read. I will talk to you later.